In my opinion, there are a few ways that you can tell the difference between a home sewer and a professional sewer, and usually they're to do with ironing or pressing, and this is related to that. So I thought I'd hop on today to tell you all about clipping your curves and corners and when you would do it. So we're starting off with a concave curve. So you might find this on a neckline or an armhole, anywhere that you've got this curve that's this concave shape. So you might have read on your pattern to cut notches like triangles like this, but actually on this type of curve you just want to do snips. So these snips, when you spread your curve out, so if you look, once the curves come the other way, the curve gets spread out. So those snips will then split apart and create those triangles as you do. I'll show you how it looks in a bit. So let me just clip through the neckline. So you can see them spread. Right, I'm going to quickly iron this the right way round now so you can see what happens. So this one has been pressed, and what I'm going to do is, if we look between the layers, you can see what's happened to those clips. So I'm going to cut off the top layer just so you can actually see what's happened here, because it's a really good idea to see like why you're doing something as opposed to just doing it without any knowledge. Not entirely sure I chose the best colour for this, but here we go. So you can see that those just individual little snips have spread themselves out, and that's because this curve has turned the other way, so it's spread them outwards. It's now become a concave curve. The seam allowance has flipped from one way to the other, if you can imagine that. And this will ease the seam allowance, so it will press much smoother as it won't be pulling anymore. Right, so now we're going to do a concave curve. So this is the other way around, and this is where we're going to do the opposite of what we did before, because it's going to turn into a convex curve. So this time you are actually going to cut the triangles out. So this is because when you press it and that seam allowance turns the other way in, it's all going to bunch up inside. So you're removing the bulk of the fabric so that there's less fabric to bunch over each other inside. And what happens, these triangles will push together, and so it should create a much more seamless curve. Now with both of these, the tighter the curve, the closer together that you're going to put your notches or clips. So if it's just a gentle curve, you can spread them out quite far, but this is quite a tight curve, so I'm doing it about every ½ inch. I'm not measuring, it's just an eyeball it thing. So this type of curve you might use more in craft applications or bag making or something, but it is used in dressmaking as well, so you might use it for pockets or collars, that sort of thing. Okay, so now I'm going to take that over to the iron and press that the other way round, just like I did before. Okay, so now we've pressed it, and let's do what we did last time. Let's cut it open so you can see what is happening to those notched seams underneath. Okay, so you can see that these notches, these triangles that you cut, have bunched close together, so they've closed up slightly. And you can imagine if you hadn't put those triangles in, how much more bulk of fabric that would be. So you wouldn't have a smooth seam at all. And that's one of the reasons why we do these notches, is to sort of help a seam not be pulled tight so you can iron it smooth. So in the case of this convex curve, it's given ease in the seam allowance, and then so it can move around a lot easier. And then in the case of this concave curve, it's taken away some of that seam, so you don't have a bulky. Each one of these is providing a vehicle for you to be able to press really neatly. So let's look at square corners. Okay, so my super cheat method, and this works more on proper squares, so I use it on craft things like cushions and things like that, is on the seam line, just finger press the seam down and again down on the other side of the corner, and then turn it inside out, holding those together. So you're just going to hold one side while you flip it through the right way, and then those squared off pieces fill out the corner and help create this perfectly crisp square shape. It's really a nice, fun way of doing it. Right, but we're not talking about that today. We are talking about clipping. So we want to reduce the bulk on a corner. So you might use this for things like collars, again, pockets, that sort of thing. So what I do is chop off the corner at an angle and then go for a shallower angle on both sides again. So I've cut really close to the stitching, leaving about 1 millimetre, and then, so if you look, I'm going to fold this in, so this is what it would look like on the inside, and now that seam allowance doesn't overlay itself at all. So when I turn this the right way round, and I'm not even going to bother pressing this, so you can see that with that careful clipping, we've still got a really nice crisp square shape. So I hope this helps you elevate your sewing. And now if somebody could just tell me what to do with all these little bits of confetti that I always seem to have lying around, that would be really helpful.